Hello, everyone. Ray Newman's here with Farewell, My King, the Call to Me podcast. And boy, we have a treat for you today. Today is going to be a little different, but it's going to be great. So grab your pens and your paper because here's what we're about to do. We're about to launch into the budgeting workshop that Wade did at local churches. So you get a treat. You can do this from your living room or from your office. We are going to be doing the intro all the way through all of the chapters of his budgeting book, Climbing the Mountain, the Heart of Budgeting. Okay, so how do you get a hold of us? Farewell, my king at Gmail. If you have any questions, how do you find us? We're on YouTube at Farewell, my king. Just search us up. We have more content there. And then last but not least, please check us out on Facebook at Wade J. Carey Author. That is the best place. That's where we're doing the budgeting at this time. So this is a great time to grab your budget or to grab a blank piece of paper and a pen and get ready to find out what is before the budgeting. So I will no longer be on the screen. I'm going to take this and turn this over to Wade, and he will be taking you through exactly the same process that he took his people through at local churches. So buckle up, stay with us, and keep track of all these key things that Wade has given to us. So without further ado, Wade J. Carey, the budgeting workshop, author and extraordinary. Wade, I'm going to jump off. Thank you for doing this for the people. And man, I'm excited to hear what you have to say. So take it over, Wade.
Well, thanks, Ray. First off, I want to say this is probably going to be a little different than what you might be expecting. So I ask you to bear with me, and we'll set up everything in the introduction, and then we'll start rolling through the chapters of the book so you can just get an idea. This is going to be a big picture view about budgeting. So let's get started. When I'm doing the live presentations, there's really, three parts to this, and they're all equally important. But the first part is the presentation, which is basically a synopsis of the book, Climbing the Mountain, the Heart of Budgeting. Part two, this can be done in different ways when it's done live, or, in the future, we're looking at doing, some live podcasts and things like that. Is a roundtable, because what we find out is that in dealing with money, there is pain that is very common to all of us, and that's pain that involves people who make very little, or people who make a lot. Money is a difficult subject and has to have its proper place in your life, or it's going to bring pain one way or another. But the third part is don't spend your time with this unless you plan on doing something, because action has to come after that. And so certainly there's going to be something in this that you can take away. And I'd encourage you to put it into action. Don't just have an idea in your head and let it bounce around your head. Let's do something about it. So overall, the subject of budgeting, I've found that it's a subject that no one wants to talk about, but everyone needs to talk about. And just like the child in the presentation doesn't want that cough medicine is going to be good for the kid. So this is just something I think is best. I know a lot of people have shown interest in this, but they're not really ready to make the jump. Make the jump. Let's do something about it, because putting pain behind you feel so much better when you take action versus not. So this is a subject that nobody wants, but everybody needs. So our goals with the whole process are twofold. Number one, I'm taking the position that during this presentation, and certainly in the book, that I'm going to stand up like an attorney, and I'm going to try to make a case. So you as a judge and jury, sit and listen and take it in, and see if the evidence leads you towards what I'm saying. And again, we're talking about big picture versus the minutiae of details. So I'm going to stand up and try to make a case to you. But secondarily, my underlying goal is to make sure that I help alleviate some pain, because when money does not have a proper place in your life, it's going to bring pain in some way, shape, or form. And it does. Whether you don't have enough money or whether you have a lot of money and you're worried about losing it. If money doesn't find its proper place, if your wallet is in a higher place in your life than it should be, then there's going to be some level of pain. And that's really what I'm trying to help alleviate. So stay tuned with that, and let's keep rolling. So several approaches. The first one is that perhaps I think is the most under discussed part of the Christian faith is that God identifies as our Father. And that's an important distinction. And I share that with groups. I share it in small groups. I share it in this presentation. A couple of passages on the screen. One is in Deuteronomy, which is the Old Covenant, the Old Testament, and one is in the New. And certainly, Christians are familiar with the Lord's Prayer, our Father in heaven, our Father. So several things about the Christian faith. There are some things in the Old Testament that are only for the theocracy of Israel and really don't apply today, the way they did then. But with God identifying himself as a father throughout the Bible, that is something we must stand on, because it's very important, because we become heirs of the entire kingdom through this father-child relationship. And that's how he relates to us. And we have to remember that. We're not just adherents, we're not just servants, but we are sons and daughters of the Most High God. And that carries with it an important distinction, and especially how we deal with money. So God expects us to be stewards, and throughout the entire process, we have to evaluate, well, why don't we like the subject of budgeting? And I came up with the idea of Philly cream cheese.
Hey, Deb, there's a budget meeting today.
Budget meeting? Sweet. Budget meeting.
Budget meeting?
Up to the side, we have the simulations versus the actual sales from our predictive algorithm. Now, as we break down quarterly over the past 2 years.
It's no wonder everything seems a little better with the delicious taste of Philly. Made with real milk and cream. It must be the Philly.
Woo!
So, the Philly to us as Christians is that God identifies as our Father, and that is extremely important, and it really requires us to improve and understand the way we deal with money. So that's the first approach. The second approach is in several spiritual gifts tests I've taken over the years, exhortation always shows up. And I use this a lot in my business life with my job, is finding a way to encourage people, show optimism, show excitement. That's always part of my ministry efforts. It's part of my business life. It's part of just about everything that I do. But since we're talking about the truth of Jesus Christ, we're also going to be talking about the truth. There's going to be some things here that may be a little difficult to swallow at first, but I'm going to be very direct. So I'm going to encourage you, but I'm not going to shade the truth one single bit, because this is an extremely important subject. And once you fully can embrace it, I think that you're going to feel a whole lot better about your situation, regardless of where you are and how much money you have in your bank account. So this third approach is extremely important. I'm not here to try to replace any of these detailed financial courses that are out there. I have facilitated several of these, and that's really how this book began, which I'll get into in just a few minutes. But this is the why we budget. That's really what we're leading up to through all of these different approaches. The how-to is very simple, really. Now, that doesn't say it's not important, but typically if we want to improve something in our life or overcome something in our life, we're always saying, well, how to? Well, give me a list of things. Give me 8, 10, or 12 things to do. And those are important, but the why kind of hovers over all of that. That's the authority over all of it. So why do we want to budget is what this book is about. And my hope is that you'll use this as a way to examine your heart as you go into the process, and then learn the process. I'm not here to reinvent the wheel. There's several out there, and later on in the program, we'll share, some of them. We're not going to endorse just one, but we're just going to acknowledge that there are several, of these programs out there where you can learn the how-to, but the how-to is important, but it's not as important as the why. And that's what really is the big monster we're trying to tackle in this whole seminar. So want to hit you right off with a question. And since, this is not in a format where I can sit a nasty audience, I'm going to just challenge you right up front. When you hear, the word budgeting or anything like that, how do you feel? I mean, just examine, what is your first feeling? Frustrated? Does it make you nauseous, angry, afraid, ashamed? Will you avoid it at all costs, which a lot of people do? Or does it make you happy? Are you weird like me like that? So the question again is, why are you here? And I've already challenged you that coming out of this, taking some action is going to be very important. But why are you here? What prompted you to want to spend a few minutes to go into this? What prompted you to be interested in this? And I want to encourage you to examine that in your own heart, so that you'll be able to identify with it, so that ultimately something good comes out of it. So, how this book come about? I'll spend just a minute on that. I had just, it was 2017. I had just finished writing my 6th novel, and I met with Ray and our ministry partners, and we do a lot of things together. And he had been through a course that I facilitated, one of the how-to courses, which was really good. And he just came to me. We had lunch one day, and he just came to me and says, "I hate to tell you this, because I know you're just finishing up this other book, but you need to write this budgeting book." He had talked with several of the people, and we have found that there's a lot of common ground with what we all share in dealing with budgeting and money and things like that. And the symbolism that came out of it was, within 24 hours, I had the concept of the book, and I had the title of it. And 48 hours later, I had all the chapters laid out. 45 days after that, the book was written. So I took, several weeks to edit and to, get it ready for production, including arranging, the artist that we have that does all the graphics and whatnot. But really, the symbolism is we're born at odds with our wallet. And we're thinking about money all the time because we think it's going to help us to get this and that, and it does, but money is a commodity. So we're born separated, our hearts and our wallets, and this concept of this book is to unite them, so that whether you make a lot of money in your life or you make a little bit or somewhere in between, you are going to live at peace. And again, the financial courses are great, but the why isn't tackled often enough, I don't believe, to give you the full effectiveness of it. So we're not going to talk about merely techniques, because that has been done by some brilliant people in the finance world. This is about living faithfully, and that is so unbelievably important, because faith is an important element with God, and we'll talk about that in a second. We are spiritual, physical, and mental creatures. And, if you think about it, physically, our body, it will follow the battle between our soul, or our mental, side of us, which is our intellect and experiences, and our spirit made in the image of God. And if you think about it, this battle goes on all the time. Our soul may say, "Well, I want to go buy this new car," but your spirit says, "Well, you really don't have the money for it." Well, sometimes we're impulsive and we do things that we shouldn't. So there's this battle between what we know is right and, the things that we want. And again, that's part of the examination of what we're, digging into. I'd like to consider, or for you to consider, what your budget serves as in your life. And the best example I could come up with is, it's sort of like the plug in your bathtub. If you don't have a plug in your bathtub, the water's not going to stay in it. And your budget serves as that plug that will at least let you know what you're doing with your money, because it's going to disappear very quickly if you don't have a plug, if you don't have some kind of guardrails up. And as Christians, we cannot leave our wallets on the sidelines. And I know there's going to be some who are not Christians who are watching this. And I want to encourage you to just, set aside any spiritual differences and see what there is in this program that you can glean from it. I don't think anybody can really, leave your wallet on the sidelines if you want to have true success in dealing with money.